I had a reader asking about something that I haven't really ever discussed before in my vlog, which is my open relationship. They didn't actually ask me specifically to talk about mine, but they asked for some advice. So I have decided, perhaps against my better judgment, to give you guys 5 pieces of advice that I figured out over the 8 years that I've been in my current open relationship and the several other open relationships I've had in the past. Mark and I have been open since we got together 8 years ago. Like I said, I have had multiple previous open relationships. This was Mark's first. So here's what I have learned about maintaining happy open relationships. So number 1, learn to interpret your own emotions. And some of that has to do with mindfulness. You are going to encounter jealousy. It's just kind of, it will happen. Even the best open relationships deal with jealousy at some point or another. And what you need to learn to be able to do is figure out where that's coming from. Figure out, is it, you know, if you feel like your partner is not, do you feel like your partner is not spending enough time with you? Do you feel like you're not getting enough attention? Do you feel like you're worried that your partner's going to leave you for their other partner? See if you can identify what's making you feel bad, and then figure out, kind of analyze and see if you can figure out why. Like if you feel like if you're worried that your partner's going to leave you, see if you can figure out why you feel that way. You know, is it that they haven't been paying as much attention lately? Is it that things are rocky between you? And you know, just try and figure out what's going on, and then check in with your partner and see if you can figure out, you know, whether those fears are valid and based in reality, or if they're just stereotypical, you know, irrational emotions. Which brings me to advice number 2, tip number 2, which is communicate, communicate, communicate. I cannot stress this enough. You really need to talk and check in on a very, very, very regular basis. Super important. And talk about and get emotions involved. Talk about how each of you is feeling about each part of the relationship. Make sure that there's not a whole lot of judging going on as well. But you know, just check in and make sure that everybody understands that more communication is good. For a while, Mark had an issue where he was worried that, you know, for some reason I had an issue with him seeing other people, so he was kind of secretive about it. And I told him that no, you know, I obviously had no issue with him seeing other people, and that in fact what bothered me was the fact that he wasn't talking to me about the fact that he was seeing other people, until, you know, I would I'd see him surfing OkCupid, and I'm like, oh, what's this one? So communication is key. Like, the more, there is no such thing as too much communication, I think. Which brings me to number 3. So try and at least be friends with everybody involved. So if, you know, like, for example, Mark and I have, I guess what is called an open V, because I date him and he dates Andy, but I do not date Andy. However, I am friends with Andy, and that really helps with everything involved, because I know where she stands, she knows where I stand, and everybody's just generally good. And you know, you don't have to be buddy-buddy, certainly don't have to be involved with everybody else. Mark's not involved with my partners, and I'm not involved with Mark's partners, save maybe the occasional one-night stand, which does happen. But as a general rule, we're not a triad. Like, I'm not involved with his partners, he's not involved with mine. but, you know, be friends with them, and that way, you know, you will get, it's kind of like an early warning system as well. When something's going wrong, you will often find out from the other partners before you will find out from your primary partner. Which leads me to number 4. Make sure that you take care of yourself. You will find that you are probably not going to get as much attention and time as you would get in a normal monogamous relationship. And so it's really crucial to make sure that you have a really rich inner life, or not inner life, really rich personal life with lots of friends and stuff to do, if that's the kind of thing you like to do. I find that in the past, people who have not had a whole lot else in their life other than their relationship have not fared well in polyamorous relationships, because they have made their partner their life, and when that person is with other people, their life suddenly feels very empty. So make sure that, you know, you have a whole lot going on. I only really see Mark about 2.5 days, 3 days a week, because I'm out of town 2 days a week, and he is with his partner about 2 days a week, 2.5 days a week. So, you know, for us, it actually works well, because I like having time to myself, and I get more of that. But for some people who are more dependent on each other, it's more of an issue. So make sure that you're kind of more on the independent side and self-sufficient side. I know that not everybody is from the start, but it is a skill set that can be learned. So try to work on that. Number 5 is make sure that you have ground rules. If necessary, you can write them down. We have found that works really well. Every time that we kind of have a kind of state of the relationship type talk, we actually will refer back to what we've written before, and sometimes add to it or subtract it, whatever. As like horribly lawyerly as it sounds, we've actually like written up a contract and signed it, so that, you know, if one of us isn't kind of holding up our end of the bargain, or isn't doing what we're supposed to do, the other one can point to that contract and say, like, hey, this isn't what we agreed on, which is critical for, in my opinion, for relationships, is to be able to agree upon what the relationship should be and whatnot, especially in poly relationships where there's so many more dynamics at work. Because it can get really complicated with, you know, managing time balancing between different people, who has priority over each other in certain matters. For instance, like if you want to have a veto rule, so Mark and I have a veto rule, which means either one of us can veto another person's relationship. So if Mark starts dating somebody I really don't like, I can say, I don't want you to date that person, or he can say that to me. We've never used it. I've gotten close. I have retroactively used it, in that after he broke up with someone, I have said, you're not allowed to date that person again because it didn't go well and it wreaked havoc on our relationship. So that's a very common one. But be careful about overusing it. In fact, I'd say it's a warning sign. If you have a veto rule and one partner is vetoing every partner, then that might be time to sit down and have a talk. But anyway, so that's learn to manage your emotions, communicate, be friends with everybody involved, even if it's just coffee or something once a month. Make sure that you are taking care of yourself, and make sure that you have well-established ground rules. I would also add 2 humorous ones at the end. Find a good therapist who is poly-friendly, because poly relationships are the most complicated and often drama-ridden things types of relationships that you will ever encounter. And I guarantee you at some point there will be some kind of meltdown. It happens even in the best relationships, but it always happens when people are just getting into poly and are just kind of starting to learn how to manage it. And it's totally fine, totally normal. Don't feel bad about it. It happens to everybody, but do find help, because you will need an impartial outside voice of reason to help you manage it all. The other is, frankly, learn to recognize the signs that someone is not poly very quickly. Mark has had some trouble with this in the past. I have actually as well. But you'll find that a lot of times, sometimes people who are monogamous really, really want to be a partner to either you or your primary, or somebody in the relationship somewhere, someone in the polycule, whatever structure it is, and they're trying to be polyamorous because they so desperately want to be with you or your partner that that they're willing to try anything, but they're really not poly, and they can't do it. They can't make it work for them, and as those relationships tend to explode really dramatically, and they're just bad for everyone. So see if you can learn to recognize that early on. It can end badly. One of our previous relationships ended in a restraining order. So just learn to kind of recognize that, and I would say in conjunction with that, try not to aim at people who are like overtly monogamous. If someone says that, you know, they're interested in trying out polyamory, that's one thing, but if, you know, someone has only had a history of strictly monogamous relationships and expresses no interest in being part of a larger polycule, I would tread very lightly. But anyway, that's kind of what has worked for us. It's what worked for me in particular. If you have any more questions, I'd be happy to answer them, either through text or through another video. I hope that is helpful to those of you getting into, I would say, the lifestyle, but that sounds really weird. I hope it's helpful to those of you who are interested in open relationships. Anyway, thanks for watching.